to the Shop, episode 200, From Tragedy to Triumph, with Talor Browne of Talormade. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFurio. I'm your host for the show, and welcome to episode 200. It seems like not too long ago, we were celebrating episode 100, where the episode title was You Are the Key, or Why You Are the Key. And of course, I still believe that. And I'm so thankful for all of you sharing the show and subscribing and just sending messages and reviews and all of that. Just being listeners to the show, I'm amazed at the reach. And I'm so humbled to be able to be in this position to share these stories and the content with you, and to do my part to help make the coffee retail world a better place. And I'm so excited to share this episode with you today. It's a great conversation with Talor Browne of Talormade in Oslo, Norway. And you're not going to want to miss this one because it hits hard with a lot of truth I think all of us need to hear. So stay tuned for that. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Prima Coffee. Prima Coffee is one of the world's best specialty coffee equipment suppliers, simply because they focus so heavily on not just curating the best equipment from all over the world, but also working closely with their clients, with their customers, to make sure that they get the equipment they need for the job. So no matter what your situation is, you can be opening your first store, expanding to your second, or just looking to upgrade your commercial equipment in general. Prima Coffee can come alongside you and help you select the exact right stuff. And they've got plenty to choose from. If you go to prima-coffee.com, you'll see what I mean. And not only will you see the amazing selection that they have, things like brewers, espresso machines, grinders, hot water towers, even under-counter refrigeration and sinks, just the whole spectrum of commercial equipment for your shop. You'll also see that they've developed quite a library of resources for you to engage with and learn about coffee, learn about the equipment. They just released a latte art series just not long ago, so they're always trying to bring value to you, and that's why I'm so excited to partner with them here on the show. So if you're looking for awesome commercial coffee equipment and amazing people to help you along the way, I can't recommend highly enough prima-coffee.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by the always amazing Pacific Barista series. That, of course, is the line of plant-based performance beverages that bring your plant-based offerings in your cafe to another level. These were designed specifically for professional baristas and the standards for excellence that they have. And not only that, they were designed alongside of some of the world's best baristas, bench testing these on their bars to make sure that they perform before they hit the market. So when you use something like the almond, oat, soy, coconut, rice, anything from the Barista Series line, you will be able to tell that all that work went into it, because it'll take the heat from steaming, produce amazing texture, and keep the flavor balance focused on the coffee. All of this is stuff your customers are really looking for when they choose a plant-based option in your shop. And the Pacific Barista Series is perfectly designed to meet their needs. So I would encourage you, get this in your store, try it out for yourself, let your customers and staff try it. And of course, I think you're going to love it. So to get more information, go to pacificfoods.com, follow the link in the show notes, and get the Barista Series in your store. See what it can do to elevate your plant-based options in your shop. Okay, so today we are going to be talking with Talor Browne of Talormade in Oslo, Norway. And, this is a milestone episode for us, episode 200. And I thought, what better way to celebrate a milestone here at Keys to the Shop than by showcasing somebody else's milestone and great accomplishment. And Talor Browne's opening of Talormade is such an accomplishment. Talor is an amazing coffee professional who has been in the specialty coffee world for 20 years and is a pastry chef also that ended up in Oslo, Norway, via Paris and Melbourne. She's the former head roaster of Tim Wendelbo and founder of Talor and Jorgen. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because she was a guest on the show back in 2018 in May as a Founder Friday guest talking about Talor and Jorgen. And a lot has happened between that time and now. That's what this whole episode is about, because she's currently on the cusp of opening the first of 3 stores of her new roastery and donut shop called Talormade. Talor and Jorgen was essentially a specialty coffee juggernaut. People's appetite for the donuts and the coffee was insatiable. They were shipping coffee to over 50 countries. They were being sold out almost all the time of their donuts, no matter how many they made. And their brand, their coffee shop and bakery was just a hit instantly. And of course, with that kind of popularity comes a lot of work. And Talor took on that incredible amount of work that it took to run something like Talor and Jorgen, regularly working 300 hours a month to train chefs, roasters, and baristas. She started to feel the strain. And all of this culminated in her business partners trying to push her out of her own company. There's an ugly lawsuit, a court settlement, and the best option for the employees' sake to make sure that they still had their jobs was to take the money and move on. And that kind of an unforeseen change in the life of a professional is not only difficult beyond describing, but it's also something that a lot of people don't come back from. And that's where we focus on today's episode, is going from that tragedy over at Talor and Jorgen to this triumph now with her new company, Talormade, and all points in between. And there is a lot that we discuss in this conversation around burnout, self-care, navigating the intense emotions that come through this, the dark days that were so prevalent while this was transpiring. And through this story, I hope that you find inspiration and also instruction, because Talor gives a lot of great advice that will help us avoid these types of things in our own company and in our own careers. And so now, seeing how things have turned out for Talor in this journey, I think this is ultimately a message of hope in the midst of the pain of unforeseen change. And again, I'm really excited to welcome Talor back to the show and to share her story with you. And so without further ado, here now is my conversation about going from tragedy to triumph with Talor Browne of Talormade. Well, Talor, it is so great to have you back on the show. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great, mate. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm such a huge fan and I listen to the podcast all the time. So yeah, it's a huge honor to be back.
I really appreciate that. We're having this conversation on like just the edge of when you're going to open your new space. And that's where you are right now. I think you're in your soon to be open space. How soon is it before Talormade is actually open to the public? What's going on there right now?
We signed the contracts to start this company almost exactly a year ago today. It was early January 2019. And yeah, it's been 12 months of planning to get here. And we just assembled all of the furniture. And I'm sitting in the corner watching the new team, go through a tea tasting with one of the guys who's providing tea for us called Spill the Tea. And yeah, just watching them get to know each other and learn a little something about specialty tea while I do my thing over in the corner. It's pretty magic, to be honest with you. Like we're very, very close. We're basically getting to the point of the build where we are just mopping and vacuuming and putting all of the retail products on display. And yeah, we're very, very close. So we're going to have a launch party tomorrow night, and then maybe we'll do a soft launch Monday next week. So
wow, congratulations. That's huge.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah. So, a lot has happened, obviously, between 2018. It was May of 2018, the last time you were on the show. And at that time,
long time.
Yeah, Talor and Jorgen was booming, and now you're on to this bigger and better project that is just, from the looks of your Instagram, like everything you do is just so beautiful. And
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the branding, the colors, everything, the quality of what you're accomplishing there, it seems like it's bringing a lot of life and joy to you and to your team. There's a lot that happened to get there, and I wonder if you could, since this is a conversation about navigating change, and this is a huge unforeseen change for you, how did this happen that you're no longer with the company that you founded, Talor and Jorgen, and now you're starting Talormade. What's gone on between these two businesses?
That's a big question. So I think I probably just have to start this conversation out with a little bit of a disclaimer that unfortunately I can't be as candid as I typically am in the rest of my life. I'm very transparent about things that are happening to me and things that are happening in my life. But there was a lawsuit involved with the conclusion of me and my old company where I signed a non-disclosure agreement. So unfortunately, I can't delve into the details of, what led us to that point. But I certainly can talk about maybe some small things and then try and best explain without stepping on any toes. But basically what happened is that myself and my business partner, Jorgen, we started a coffee roastery, an online coffee roastery at the end of 2015 when I was leaving Tinwendobo. We had some silent investors in that company. He and I were the majority shareholders, and it was just a very small company, but we had like a pretty big global reach pretty early on, and we were both of us really surprised and kind of like stoked about that. We were then offered by these investors to take over a physical retail space in a then kind of like derelict part of Oslo in the central part of town. And when we were doing that, we were talking about, whether we just wanted to have a coffee place that didn't serve any food, maybe like Tinwendobo, or whether we wanted to do something else. And, my history is also as a pastry chef. And I thought that Oslo is like a pretty bleak culinary landscape. Things are changing now, but back in 2015, 2016, it was a very different story. So I thought, instead of complaining about like the lack of good food in the city, I was like, why don't I bring something new that hasn't been done here yet, and maybe inspire some other people to do interesting stuff so that the culinary landscape's a little bit more interesting. So yeah, I ended up, I spent some time in Melbourne and ended up working at a friend's donut shop for a month and learned how to make donuts. And then I came back to Oslo and started doing all these pop-ups. And in the beginning, I was doing it alone. But then my business partner joined me, and because we realized like it was donuts were pretty complementary to the coffee side of things. And yeah, we did pop-ups all over the city for a couple of years, and it became quite a huge thing in Oslo. We would show up and there would be hundreds of people in a line down the street. I think every single event I ever did right from the beginning, it sold out every single time.
Wow.
And the donuts have actually got a little bit of a cult following here, which it blows my mind. Like, I just have to pinch myself that people care this much about what I'm doing. It's really amazing. And yeah, so at the culmination of that was we basically opened this retail space that we got offered by our investors. And the investors, because they were opening businesses in this building with like multiple young entrepreneurs that were also developing their own concepts, they said, they need to have some like harmony within these businesses. So it was very important for them to keep a majority share of all of these businesses. So we had the roastery, and then we had the coffee shop as a separate business. We were so busy. Like, there's no way I could have anticipated how insane that launch was going to be. And because, you think you do pop-ups and you sell 200 donuts in 30 minutes, and you think there's no way that this could repeat itself Monday to Friday or like 7 days a week. There's no way. Once the supply becomes more constant, then things are going to calm down, surely. But when we opened, it just never stopped. We would make 800 donuts and they would be gone in as fast as it took us to sell them, because the lines were that long. And it was 7 days a week. And because when I spoke to you on the phone previously, I spoke about the fact that I wanted to create job opportunities for people who maybe have been out of work, and people who maybe didn't see themselves as working in hospitality, like people who maybe struggled with employment and stuff like that, because this is the things that I cared about. And so my team was not trained enough, didn't have enough experience, and they were thrown into a really challenging, very busy, very stressful and chaotic startup business that just we could never keep on top of the quantity. And I was getting pressure from customers of like, why aren't you making enough? And I was getting pressure, in that like I wasn't sleeping and I was working 16 hours a day. You know, there was a couple of days actually, where I started work at 5:30 in the morning and I didn't go home until 3 o'clock in the morning.
My goodness.
And, you know, I'd go to home and I'd sleep for a couple of hours and I'd just do it all again. And the tricky thing is that because I'm an Australian living in Norway, I have a very different work ethic, and my work culture is very different to you know, native Norwegians. In Australia, if you own your own business, you have to give it everything you got. Otherwise, your failure is on you. It's your fault. Whereas in Norway, it's very, very, very common for people to look down upon people who work outside of the typical standard working hours, because it comes back to this cultural thing called janteloven, which is basically like kind of tall poppy syndrome, I guess is the way that you could describe it. You're not special. You know, you shouldn't strive harder than anyone else because you don't deserve anything more than anyone else. And anyone who asks for more is usually looked down upon. So people who work extra hard to achieve more, they're not rewarded for it. Sometimes you can be punished. Yeah, it's really fascinating. It's a very unusual thing. And so it's hard for me because, you know, I come from like a working class family where it's like, you know, you work hard and you get ahead. It's a real American attitude, I think. But yeah, so I was putting in all of these crazy hours because I wanted to support my team and I wanted to be there for them. And I promised them, you know, you're going to work 7.5 hours a day. You're going to have like a big healthy lunch. I don't want to stress you out. I want this place to be like healthy and safe for you. And so I took on all of that extra responsibility myself. And honestly, like what ended up happening is I burnt out. And I mean, like maybe I just don't want to like trigger anybody. But I was at one point after we spoke in 2018, you know, I became suicidal. And I thought, you know, that the hardest that I work is never enough. I'm never good enough. This will never be good enough. I'll never make enough to satisfy people. And it was just, I kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and it was just never enough. And
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, my employees, I don't know if you heard that, but they just had a big laugh. They weren't laughing at me.
So cruel.
Ill-timed laugh. And yeah, there was basically a catalyst of one day where I had someone in the kitchen needed something from me that I wasn't able to give them. And it was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And I went out. I never broke in front of anybody, but I went out into the alleyway that was next to the kitchen where we were working. And this was after like 35 days in a row. I was exhausted. And I called my husband and I said, I can't do this anymore. I said, I'm either going to quit or I'm going to kill myself because I can't live like this anymore. And he said to me, Taylor, you can't kill yourself over a donut shop. And like, it's kind of funny to think about it now. Like, I'm coming from a very healthy place now. But like, that's kind of where I was. And so, you know, I went to my business partner and I went to my investors and I just told them straight, because I'm very open about my mental health and my mental health journey. And I had been with my business partner and my investors. And I said, you know, guys, like, I am really, really, really struggling. I can't keep up with this pressure and this weight, and I need help. I need help from you if I'm going to get through this. And yeah, I don't want to go like too much into the rest of the conversations that happened with them afterwards. But I mean, what did end up happening was that they tried to fire me from the company. Wow. That's on public record. Mm-hmm. So, and yeah, that was a very long and drawn out thing. And it culminated with me taking them to court for unfair dismissal. And in Norway, the way it works is like, it's not like America where if you get unfairly terminated, you can have like a crazy huge legal settlement. It's usually the people who make money in these situations is the lawyers. And so yeah, we actually settled the lawsuit pretty quickly. I was happy to take them to court, but because this opportunity that I have now presented itself, I was just like, let's finish this, let's move on. And so yeah, we settled out of court. And yeah, it was with like that's I mean that was something that helped springboard me into my latest project. So yeah, basically this thing that I almost killed myself over because I loved it that much and I cared about it that much, I lost it. And I thought that, I mean, you might have heard when I spoke to you last time, this was the culmination of my entire career. I'd put all of my eggs in this basket, and to lose this thing that I had built was literally the most devastating thing to ever happen to me in my whole life. It broke me. I thought there was nothing. I couldn't survive if this thing happened to me. But I now have kind of come to realize, like through time and also through tons of therapy, that actually it was the best thing that could have ever happened, because I needed to learn so many hard lessons to be the kind of boss that I can be now. And where I was back then, I was so naive, man. I had a lot of really grand ideas, but very little understanding of the real world application of those things. And the person that I am now, and the journey that I had to take to get here to build this really, really incredible thing that we're on the cusp of. Yeah, I mean, like I'm opening 3 to 4 new stores in the next 12 months, and just crossed the 20-ton mark of roasted coffee now. New roastery with a beautiful lorrying, and yeah, all of that had to happen for me to get here. And yeah, I'm really grateful that I get to talk about that a little bit, because I think if I'd heard someone who had a similar story as me when I was going through what I was going through, maybe it would have been a little bit less scary. But yeah, it was very hard period in my life. Yeah.
You mentioned the straw that broke the camel's back when you went into the alleyway and had that phone call. I wonder, in the process of going through the lawsuit, going through the process of knowing that you were going to be leaving the thing that you loved but almost killed you, what was it in all of that, through the therapy, through the mulling over and the processing, what was the thing similar to that straw that broke the camel's back? Like, what was the thing that turned things around? Was there a moment where you said, this is the realization that I have after all of that, now I can pivot from here in a healthy way? Was there a moment or an insight or something from the outside that helped you overcome that loss in order to put your energy into something that's even more, sounds like, more complex, larger, but healthier?
You know what? I don't think that there has ever been one thing that has ever felt like that this is the catalyst or this is the turning point. Because, a lot of when I realized that I was going to start this new company with my new crew, it was one of the worst days. It was, someone had started like a fake Instagram account that was basically just built to slander me. And
Whoa.
There was some of my former colleagues from one of my old jobs, publishing public posts on Facebook and sending them around of really libelous stuff. And I was so vulnerable that I was literally physically vomiting, because I was just so grief stricken and hurt. My mum literally got on a plane from Australia and flew across the world to be with me because I was so unsafe on my own. And, it was during these periods that I was, meeting these new people and deciding that we were going to work together and, signing these new contracts and, just to have that duality of, yeah, you can be going through the worst time in your life, but you can be making steps towards the thing that's going to change your life. And yeah, it was a lot of really dark days, and I think it was just the being able to get out of bed on those days and get up and face the world and keep going. Yeah, but certainly like the day that Ida started with me in my new company Talormade, like the day that I hired my first employee, and she started up, and the day that we worked together, and the day that I was able to delegate away some tasks to take some of the pressure off me, I was just like, oh yeah, this feels different. And it's not been like a pivotal moment ever, but it's just been this slow, gentle rhythm of life returning to something joyous and positive. There's been lots of little things, but it's never been a big thing. And I think that that's a really valuable thing for people to know also, is that, maybe it might not be one big glorious change, but it's those little incremental changes that can take you really far away from what you've been dealing with and the things that you've been suffering through. Yeah, that's
really important. It's definitely, I think, a tendency to believe that things can be just black and white, that you have to just search for the perfect replacement for what you thought was the perfect opportunity that was lost. So I love that there's, it's not love, I guess, it's tragic to have to go through something like that. But it's messy because things are just not that simple, and that it sounds like the light was gradually getting brighter and brighter as things, like the sun set on this last chapter of your life, and now you've got this, this new crew and this new business. And I wonder what, first, I guess maybe just describe Talormade, how it's different, and also along with that, what is it that you are doing differently now with this business from Talor and Jorgen, and why?
Okay, I think there's one main big difference, and the difference is that in the first company, I was the person who held the key to all of the information of how things would be done. Like, I was the only one who knew how to make donuts in the whole city or the whole country of Norway. And, I had to teach people how to do that. And it was, that's not something that someone can learn overnight. So it means being very present, giving feedback, gently nudging in the right direction to get better at the things that you're doing. And it was the same with the roasting as well. I was the only one who knew how to roast coffee. And I was the only one who was doing all of the social media and all of the copy on the website. And I was the only one who was doing the wholesale program. And I was in everything. And that, to me, it felt at the time like a very important thing, because I needed to be there to help everybody be able to have the tone that the business needed, and complete tasks the way that they needed to be completed. And it was a double-edged thing, because I also didn't want to delegate too heavily on people, because I didn't want them to be overwhelmed with their workload. It was coming from a place of kindness and conscientiousness. But what I've now come to realize is that, if you challenge people, they thrive. If you give them the tools to be able to get the job done, and you trust them and respect them enough and give them the space enough to do it, maybe they might not get there the same way that you would, but they're going to feel so much more happy and confident in their work, and they're going to feel so much better that you trusted them to be able to do that. I think this was one of the main lessons that I've learned and the main things that make this company different, is that I have been able to take the last 6 months to individually train the people in their various positions, and also let go as well. We had I don't even know what it was the other day. There was like a little bit of a crisis in the roastery and the production kitchen. And I'm so overwhelmed with, getting this build completed, that I said to them, I'm like, guys, you got to tell me what you need for me to give you, and I need you to solve this. And, you know, the old me would have been doing the thing, fixing the thing, you know, being there for them, making sure that they were okay. But I had to just protect myself and say, like, I need to be careful about how hard I'm working, and I'm doing something very important right now. And I trust you to be able to fix this. And afterwards I followed up with them as well. And I said, like, I'm sorry that I had to leave you to fix that. But I'm really grateful and proud of you that you found a solution for it. And yeah, that's the main difference, I think. Yeah.
It's interesting. You're saying the old you would have just been doing the stuff. That's so common for managers, like first-time managers especially, will try to do everything. We actually just have a shift break that went live today called Work-Life Balance. And
I can't wait to listen to it.
Yeah, so this interview is so on point. But, you know, I was thinking your goal in the old business was to provide a safe place for your employees and a place where they would thrive too. And and you know, this is not meant to sound harsh, but at in the moment, your inability to draw boundaries for yourself of what was a healthy workload, it sounds like it could have also provided inadvertently that same kind of stressor for the employees, and like you, or at least you
Absolutely.
could better recognize now when one of your own staff is being overwhelmed because you've kind of lived past that point in your own life.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is what I'm like so grateful for, that I'm sorry that I had to learn that lesson the hard way with a bunch of people that I really cared for. And I think, you know, some of them might not like me very much, to be honest. And I think, like, sometimes in a business as well, it's if you're unhappy at work, it's nice to find a scapegoat to blame. And honestly, I feel like I did become a scapegoat for a lot of problems that was in that business that I didn't have anything to do with. And that's okay. You know, I can be that for them if that helps them get through their day to day. But certainly, like, what I was trying to do was with like the best of intentions. It just didn't, you know, end up that way, unfortunately. But yeah, like I can definitely understand that I wasn't perfect. And I didn't do the right things sometimes, and I was under such extreme pressure that I think it would be challenging for anyone to function well and healthily. And, you know, it's I'm also coming from a place where you know, I grew up in a kind of a funny household that had very weird and odd boundaries, and, you know, as an adult I have to handle that personally, and then make sure that doesn't affect my working relationship with my employees and colleagues. So, and, you know, this is honestly, I feel like everyone should be in therapy. It's such a valuable thing to increase your quality of life, because it's also given me a really healthy perspective. You were mentioning like black and white thinking before. So many things are grey, and so many things can be shaped by your perception of things. And yeah, just coming to most things with like openness and empathy and understanding of, like, you know, maybe this person is not having a great day, and maybe I need to take some moments before I respond or react to this, can be just a really valuable thing.
Yeah, you're interrupting your pattern of thinking. And with therapy especially, it's, you know, maybe not so with everybody. There's, you know, increasingly it's hard to be vulnerable and talk through issues that you have, that we all have, with friends and family. And we could be pretty isolated, you know. And having the opportunity where it's a focused time to actually investigate your own head sounds like such a valuable thing. That's something that I can echo that is really, really critical. You can, like, for me, even just doing things like this show and other areas of life that just kind of crowd in on you, and everyone listening here has their own set of pressures that they feel are insurmountable. Once you talk through them with somebody who's actively listening to you and can offer some suggestions that are outside of your own head, you'd be surprised at how the clouds part and you can allow a little bit more energy and sunlight into your perspective.
I definitely really struggled with the loneliness of being in that position, because I felt like I couldn't go to my business partner, and I couldn't go to any of my friends, and I like, my husband was sick of hearing from me about it, and I had so much turmoil, and like I was struggling because I'm a very emotional person as well, and like I was really just struggling, and I just didn't know where to go or who to turn to. And I found I'm actually part of a group of young female entrepreneurs in Oslo, where we do talk about like the struggles of managing a team, and the things that are tough about that, and having other people who've had that experience and who deal with the similar problems as you. It's an extremely valuable thing, because I'd only come from the perspective of an employee before. And, one of the things that happened after I opened the first store is I contacted a lot of my old bosses and I apologized to them. I'm like, I had no idea how much you were dealing with. And I appreciate so much the time and the energy that you gave me. Because, yeah, I'd had a very, like, selfish perspective as a previous employee. I realized in some companies that I'd worked for. Yeah, it just gave me a really interesting insight into just wearing someone else's shoes. And yeah, I feel like I'm a much more intelligent and knowledgeable person at this point of my career than I ever imagined that I could be. Yeah.
When you look at all of the stuff that happened and you try to improve going forward, and you make changes like the way you delegate, and I wonder how you discern the difference between things that were outside of your control and things that were inside your control that you can change going forward. Because I just talking about that ownership mentality, and I think it's easy to beat yourself up for things and to fall on the sword for every little thing. But it also seems like a healthy path forward is to realize that not everything that happened is your fault. And how do you go through the different things and sort them in those categories?
Yeah, this is an everyday thing, because the type of person that I am is also someone who blames myself also. It's just the household that I grew up in. If something goes wrong, I'm usually the first one to point the finger at myself. And so coming out of this, it's been really important to understand, what things were out of my control, what things I was were my faults, and also to not paint myself as a victim either, because I think that's a very black and white narrative too, of like, they were wrong and I was right, and this is all. I think everyone had a part to play in how that relationship fell apart, and no one was blameless. Maybe some people had more blame than others, sure, but it doesn't help anybody to spend time or energy on that feeling. I spend so much of my time. I think I'd spend a significant amount of time in therapy a week, making sure that I don't make these mistakes again, and I come away from this experience, a more intelligent and more balanced and better human being. Someone who, is a human being capable of both good and bad behavior, but that does not make me a good or a bad person. It just makes me a person, Yeah. So this is how I've walked away from this, is like accepting responsibility, but then also understanding that I'm in control. I think maybe I'm in control of my behavior, but I'm not in control of how people react to that behavior, and just coming to terms with that, and being able to live a good life with that.
Sort of the lie that you can have the perfect cafe, or you could have the perfect system or staff, or the perfect donut.
Exactly. Someone told me once, you can be the juiciest peach on the tree and some people still won't like peaches. You can do your best, and sometimes it will not be enough. And, I have to say to myself, like, you know what? You worked really hard and you did your best and it didn't work out, and that's fine. But here you are now, and you're on the cusp of this really incredible, life-changing, not just for me, like life-changing for a really significant group of people. And, you know, like this is the path that you had to take to get here, and just coming to peace with that. It's not been easy. But I think, you know, the thing that I've been able to build now, it's genuinely, it has changed people's lives. You know, it's really hard to get a job in Norway as a foreign person. And, you know, I've created, like now I've created with the old company and this, you know, jobs for like over 40 people. And I'm so incredibly proud about that. And I won't be ashamed about that. You know, the old company, it's under a new name, but it still exists. And these people, all of them still have their jobs. And I'm so proud about that.
Mm-hmm.
I taught these people how to do the thing that gives them a livelihood. And like that in itself is a pretty beautiful thing.
Well, that definitely is a healthy perspective. And I'm so glad that you have arrived here at this moment, and have been able to be so upfront about what you've gone through. And already through this conversation, I think this has helped so many people, myself included. It's great to hear these types of things, because as you go on in the industry, you take on more responsibility, you have more ambition, and even a lot more pressure, because you're more connected to examples of things that you want to be, but you say to yourself you're not and you should be. A lot of comparisons that happen there, and to hear someone that is of your stature and has the reach that you do in the industry, and you have so much experience and such a large network in specialty coffee, to hear you talk about these things should be, I think, a lesson for anyone just getting ready to start their business, getting ready to expand their business, to take on more responsibility, to approach these things in a really healthy way. So already I think this has delivered a ton of great and healthy perspectives. And I want to kind of learn a little bit more about Talormade. You know, you're in the space now, you're building what is going to be launching next Monday, you know, knock on wood. And the just describe a little bit about what people would experience when they walk into or interact with Talormade, whether in the brick and mortar or as a pop-up. What's all the fun stuff there at Talormade?
I think before I launch into the really nice things, I think it might be wise for me to not just say all like the nice mushy stuff, but to also say something like a little bit practical about it too. I think you have to genuinely in business, and especially in big business, maybe not something that I would do differently next, like another time is maybe not be so naive, and understand that, you know, when people see how hard you're willing to work and how much of your soul you're willing to pour into something, there are some people who would take advantage of that. Especially like as a woman, you know, sometimes our value is not valued the same way as, you know, another group of people. And I think it's really important to not take all of the responsibility in that, and understand that, yeah, you know, sometimes people have not so great motives, but you can't let that like stop you from living your life either. Yeah. So I think it's maybe just valuable to say that too. Like if there are some people listening to this and finding themselves in a similar situation, I think the main piece of advice that I would have for anyone who's seen what I've been through is just make sure that, no matter how well you think you know somebody, it's very important to have everything in a contract. Involve a lawyer, make sure everything is on paper. Don't give yourself a fun business title. Make sure that you have the title on the contract that you have in your company, and just make sure that the ownership belongs in a place of power. Like you never know how a relationship will unfold under stress. And yeah, that's my advice to anyone. I think like we kind of sell ourselves a little bit short in specialty coffee and thinking that, you know, it's just a cafe. But the business that I built grew into something so much more than a cafe very, very quickly and very, very unexpectedly. And because I didn't have a certain title on my contract that was thrown together in 2 minutes in an afternoon, you know, 2 years after I started working in the company. Yeah, you know, like that can have catastrophic consequences if it grows into, and you know, we all want to grow successful businesses. So, It's very valuable to not underestimate the power of a really well run cafe. So
wow, yeah. Following up on that just a little bit, I heard you say give yourself a fun title, and a lot of people do want to open a coffee bar or run a coffee bar like a fun space, and that's not wrong. It's not wrong to want to have fun at work and make it a space that people enjoy being in, but sometimes that is a little bit of there is a cavalier attitude towards it. Like if you can just scratch by with a business plan that's sufficient and just plug in the bare minimum, that it will suffice for the future onward. Like people treat espresso equipment the same way. Like it should work forever, and when it breaks, I'm upset, and I didn't forecast that this thing would break. I guess a business is similar in that it can break also if it's not started with proper care, like you're talking about. I don't know how many people would have thought of that because they're not forecasting disaster. And I don't hear you saying that they should forecast disaster or think like, be paranoid necessarily about, somebody always around the corner trying to get them, but to be prudent in the way that you approach your business, right?
Yep. I think one of the most valuable pieces of advice that I've seen after going through this process is that just plan your exit strategy. It's the same way as when you enter a marriage. You decide whether or not you want to have a prenup. It's exactly the same with starting a company. You're basically getting married to the people that you're in business with. And just if it all goes terribly wrong, which, I mean, if you look at the statistics, it happens pretty often, like more often than not, especially in a business partnership of two people. Just make sure that you lay out what happens in the very worst case scenario, and you have that on paper and you have it signed. It's to me one of the most, and thankfully, like there were some things we had foreseen and some things that we hadn't. But yeah, I'm very lucky to have kept my name, and my name doesn't belong to someone else. That's very nice.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Thankfully. But yeah, I think not planning for the worst, but understanding like if it goes well, if this like is a rocket that goes into the stratosphere, like what does that look like? And what does that look like if it's a catastrophic failure too? Just being realistic, I think people succeeding is, I think, the rarity in our industry. And yeah, of course we're all striving towards that, but yeah, it's just having that realistic perspective. But yeah, to answer your question about my new company, so there is a bakery that was founded in Oslo in 1998 called Åpent bakeri. It basically means open bakery. And I was actually, when I first moved to Oslo, when I was working at Tim Wennerbo, one of the owners of Åpent bakeri would come into Tim's quite a lot to drink cappuccinos, and he's quite a harsh critic in his cappuccinos. They're like, oh, he's very picky. If he doesn't like how you make them, then you're going to hear about it. He's a very charming guy, a bit cheeky and very charming. And yeah, so I've known him the whole time that I lived here, and it was actually someone that worked for him, who is like doing accounting in his office, is the brother of the guy who did our packaging for Talor and Jorgen. So Bjelke and Yang is the design agency that we worked with, and I'm very close to those guys, and I love them. And this designer, Christian, he called me. He said, "Hey, my brother works with Åpent bakeri. Åpent bakeri has always wanted to make their own coffee roastery. Do you think that you would want to have a meeting with them? Because I think they want to meet with you." And I was, as I said, my mum was here to help support me, and I was not in a good way. And I was like, maybe I'll give him a call. We'll see if we can drum something up. And we had a meeting. And it was not a great day for me. But I met them, and they said, we've seen what you've done in Oslo, and we understand what you're capable of. You're a very talented, and fantastic person at what you do. We thought about whether you wanted to like roast some coffee for us, because they have 15 stores around Oslo. So they have quite a lot of coffee. And I said, I don't want to aim just at that. I want to go bigger. And they said, well, what do you want to do? Because, after what happened, it was all over the news. It was all in the media. It was national news. It was in one of the biggest newspapers in the country. And so I got a lot of calls from a lot of people saying like, we want to build a business with you. Like, what do you want to do? Let's do something together. And so, yeah, I had a lot of these meetings where I had a lot of like, I just was very skeptical because, I'd just been burnt and I was very just on guard about it. But when I sat with these guys and people who I'd known one of these guys for 6 or 7 years at this point, and they said to me, they explained a little bit about their business philosophy, which, they're a fantastic bakery. They're the largest bakery in Norway that still makes all of their bread by hand. And their bread is really delicious. But they have this principle, which is in their name, which is they're open. It's an open door policy. They're so kind and they employ a lot of people who maybe might not have other employment opportunities, but they don't talk about this stuff. They just do it. And when I met them and when I sat with them and when they heard what my dream was, they were like, we looked at each other across the table and it was just like, let's do this. I don't think that this is a bad idea. And I walked away from that meeting just thinking like, I don't think that it might not work out, it's too good to be true, probably. But we had many, many, many more meetings after that. And, we decided that we were going to go ahead and do this together. And that was when I finally felt comfortable, to like move on from, just wind up the lawsuit, just be done with it. Because I was like, I know that I'm moving on to something better. So yeah, basically what we've built is that I took over, they moved out of their own old bakery maybe about 3 years ago. It's 400 square meters. I don't know how much that is in the American form of measurement. But I took over their old bakery that they had for like 15 years, which is 400 square meters, huge. And we have a state-of-the-art roasting facility. We have a loring, and we are roasting coffees for all of the Open Bucket stores, but also selling coffees under Talormade as well. And at this point, I think we've sent coffee to like 35 countries or something. It's crazy. We're roasting more coffee than I ever did in all of the years combined in Talor and Jorgen in less than 6 months. Like, it's just been nuts.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've trained up 2 new roasters, Ida and Matt, and they're basically autonomous at this point. They're fantastic at what they do. They're both wizards. Like, I can ask them to do anything and they are all over it. I've never seen 2 people take to roasting coffee the way that they have. And they're not real coffee industry people, so they come with none of the former attitude. You know what I mean? Like, they're so open and hungry to learn. It's so beautiful. I love working with them. And so, yeah, we're roasting coffee. That's one arm of the business. But we invested in basically the best donut equipment that money can buy. We have a Rondo from Switzerland, which is a pastry sheeting machine, and it cuts our donuts out for us. So it takes away the stress from the body of cutting donuts by hand. And we have an automatic fryer that can fry 1,000 donuts in an hour. And we have like just basically anything you could ever want in the best kitchen you could ever imagine. We have that. And we have just like this lovely crew of people that are just absolute legends and who put their heads down and just, you have a problem and they fix it. We have this huge day, no problem. Let's do it. And so at this point, we're sending donuts all over Oslo to a whole bunch of our wholesale customers. I think the most we ever did in one day at this point with just a small team is like a little over 1,500, which, we could only ever make 800 a day max if we were really pushing it in the old kitchen. And we haven't even really started yet.
Wow.
We're just about to open 3 new stores. So the first one is happening next week. The second one is opening up on the waterfront in Oslo in a really, really ritzy neighborhood next to the new Monk Museum. And And then we have another one opening on the west side of Oslo at the end of the year. And we also just looked at another location this morning too, but I don't know whether that's going to happen. But yeah, basically I have a team of people behind me who believe in me. I have an incredible team of employees, of people who are like joyful and hungry and lovely and kind. And I have a whole bunch of people in Oslo who are cheering for me and who line up when it's raining outside to get donuts because they care so much about like the joy and positivity that you know, me and my team bring to this country. And yeah, honestly, it's like I have to pinch myself that this is my life. People write articles and they call me the donut queen. It's crazy to me that I could have gone from, you know, standing in an alleyway on the phone to my husband thinking my life was over, to sitting in this room right now talking to you, feeling so much more competent as a leader, feeling so much more calm and happy in my ability to create and achieve great things. And yeah, just feeling like this has the ability to be something really, really extraordinary and having full faith that actually it might happen. So yeah.
Sounds like it already is. Like you went from a nightmare to a dream come true.
Yeah, it certainly hasn't been without the pain. I think a lot of people see maybe my career trajectory and think I got handed a lot of things on a plate. But I have worked so hard to get to this point, like thousands and thousands of hours without getting any money, like no pay. Like starting up that previous company, we didn't take a salary, you know. And yeah, just now knowing that I don't have to worry about, I've got money in the bank. You know, I can be generous with the people that I love. And yeah, it's taken, I started working in coffee when I was 13 years old. And, you know, I'm 32 this year. And only now I feel like I can really sit back and think, okay, I think I can feel okay about this now. Even I don't think I will never reach a point where I've like learnt everything that I need to learn, but I can feel like I have a confidence that I don't think I had up until this point. A confidence that I can give people the tool and empower others to achieve great things too. Like it's not just about me, you know?
Yeah, that seems pretty evident. And I'm so happy for you and this new business and all that you're going to and already have accomplished with it. And I'm so happy to have had you back on the program. Really an honor to speak with you. I want to kind of round out our discussion here with the final question, which is sort of for people who are kind of navigating change that they'd rather not be navigating right now. Things that feel like they're crushing in on them and they need to sort of get some bearings and move forward in a healthy way. What would your final advice be to them to navigate that well?
Bad things can happen to good people. Just because something horrible is happening to you does not mean that you are deserving of pain or suffering. I think if you wait it out, it's probably going to get better. Just be patient with yourself and don't push. Reach out. There are people around you who care about you, and reach out to them and rely on them when you need. Yeah, just don't suffer with it alone, I think is the main tip. And also just be gentle with yourself. Yeah.
Talor, where can we go to stay in touch with the progress of Talormade and order coffee, get to visit when we're in town? Where is all that stuff found?
The best place to keep up with us is probably on Instagram. We just have the handle on Instagram, Talormade. It's Taylor without the Y, like Talor, Talormade. But we're also launching a new website next week where you'll be able to get coffee and buy some merch and do all that sort of stuff. I'm posting sometimes on our YouTube channel. It's just hard finding time to edit videos in the middle of everything else that's happening. But yeah, if you keep up with us there, we're usually pretty good at replying. So if you want to, especially if you want to like ask any questions about something that's come up in this podcast, I'm super happy to answer any questions that you have. And I always try to reply, usually as quick, like within the day if I can. Yeah, I'm always there to have a chat. So, but yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me back on. Honestly, I feel like I've learned so many things about being a better leader from your podcast. And I think that it is probably one of the most valuable learning tools in our industry. I feel like you have so much really valuable wisdom, and the people that you choose to have on the show, I feel like I always come away after listening to an episode like a much more intelligent human being. So yeah, I appreciate you so much for bringing so much value to our community. I think it's really lovely.
Well, geez, thank you so much, Talor. Feelings mutual for sure. And again, thank you so much for this conversation.
Oh, thank you for taking the time.
Now, at the end of this very emotional conversation, obviously we're talking about some incredibly deep things. And the thing that strikes me the most here is that, we try to be professionals in spite of our humanness sometimes. We try to close off who we are or what our needs are in the face of what the business's needs are, as if the two can be separated neatly. And it's just not the case. It's a human business, and it should serve the human needs of the people within it. And ultimately, that's one of the things that I hear Talor talking about when she says to be gentle on yourself, to give yourself grace. And in the new business, as she talks about letting things go and delegating and empowering her staff through the process of giving them more responsibilities, it's really encouraging because somebody of Talor's stature, 20 years of just amazing world-class business and coffee, it's almost like permission to go ahead and do those things yourself. I hope that if you're in a similar situation where you feel like you're going to burn out or are burning out, that you are able to be encouraged by Talor's words and experiences to get a step closer to letting go, to delegation, to empowering others through allowing them to help you and to help the business. It seems to be a theme in the past few weeks where we've had a shift break talking about asking for help, and then following that, another shift break about work-life balance. And now we're talking to Talor about her experiences where those things kind of went out of whack. And I hope that you heed her words today and see that in spite of what you might think, you are worth taking care of. So I want to say a really big thank you to Talor for joining us on the show. Her first store is probably open at this point, and it was so great for her to be able to take the time to talk with me on the show in the midst of all of that busyness that happens right before opening a store. Really, really appreciate that and all of the wisdom shared here. Talor, you're amazing, and all the best to you and your crew there at Talormade. If you find yourself in Oslo, definitely check them out. You can go to the website Talormade, Talor made.no, and you can also follow them on Instagram. That is Talormade on Instagram. Now, if you want the transcript for this episode, you can go to keystotheshop.com, sign up for the email newsletter by going to the contact page. You fill out all your information, click the box that says sign me up, and you will be signed up to receive the email on a weekly basis. It has the transcript. It has the links to the guests' contact information, websites. It also has bonus resources in that email that will help you in your business, in your career. So again, that's over at keystotheshop.com on the contact page. Also, if you want to reach out to me directly, you can email chris@keystotheshop.com. I would love to hear from you. Any questions, comments, or feedback you have about the show, or if you're interested in working with Keys to the Shop Consulting to help you in your business, whether that's improving your operations, helping train your employees, or do some over-the-phone coaching, all of those are available to you. Just email me, chris@keystotheshop.com. It would be great to be able to be a part of your coffee journey and help you any way that I can. So news coming up here for Keys to the Shop is I will be in New York City March 8th through the 10th. And that's because Coffee Fest is coming to New York. And I'm really excited because Coffee Fest is one of the best trade shows for coffee retailers. And I really do mean that. I've been to, I think, probably over 45 at this point, Coffee Fest trade shows, and there is so much value to be had, not only in the community that gets together there, a lot of entrepreneurs, people who have a lot of experience in the business, people just getting into the business, but there's also always a great selection of vendors. There's an incredible amount of educational opportunity at these shows. It's very affordable or even free. And so I will be giving a couple of talks here at the Coffee Fest trade show in New York City, and also judging latte art. So if you go to coffeefest.com, you can find out more information about their upcoming shows. Chicago is next, and then Anaheim. And those are the shows for this year. And if you're there, definitely say hello, and I hope to see you there. Well, that is a wrap on the 200th episode of Keys to the Shop. Thank you so much for joining me. It has been so amazing to get to air this conversation with Talor for you on this 200th episode, and I hope that it was, again, encouraging and empowering to you. Thankful for all of you listening to the show, and here's to another 200 episodes of Keys to the Shop. Have an awesome week, and as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.